Hi everybody, I'm Sarah Ockwell-Smith. Welcome to my latest SOS parenting video. This week I'm going to talk a little bit about sibling rivalry, sibling fights and sibling bickering. So if you have more than one child, I'm certain that you have experienced this. I don't think there is any family out there who hasn't got more than one child who doesn't fight with their sibling either constantly, really regularly, or now and again. And I think if anybody says that they do, or sort of gives you advice on sibling rivalry and says this is how to stop it, they're probably lying. They probably have massive age gaps, or they probably only have one child. So I have 4 children. As much as I'm a so-called parenting expert or a parenting author, I can absolutely promise you sibling rivalry, sibling bickering, really normal, really common. So the first thing to think about with sibling rivalry and bickering is actually it's quite a good thing. So I'm sure it's not a good thing for the parents, but for the children, actually it really helps them to experience relationships and disagreements in a safe setting. So the setting of your home with their siblings. And what we know from research, I think it was Cambridge University, but do check that, it's in my Gentle Discipline book. What they found is that actually those with siblings who bickered a lot actually ended up with better relationships in adulthood. So they tended to be able to cope with disagreements and arguments more easily in adulthood if they had a sibling that they regularly bickered with as a child. So I think as adults we view it almost all entirely negatively, but I think it isn't. I think there's a positive to take away from it as well. So keep that in the back of your head. It's not all bad. So what do we do when it happens? So let's say you've got 2 children fighting over something, whatever it is. What we want to try to avoid is going in every time, swooping in and fixing things as the adults. So we might think that that's the best thing to do, and certainly maybe for us it is, because it stops it more quickly. But every time we try to swoop in and we fix things, we take away the opportunity for the children to fix things. So it's something we really want to try to avoid, because every single time we're doing that, they're far less likely to be able to resolve it themselves in the future. So what we want to try and do is take a little bit of a role of, say, a kind of a referee. So if you've got 2 children fighting, you're going to walk into the room and you say, okay, so I can see 2 unhappy children. Who wants to tell me what's happening? And probably they'll both start bickering and talking at once. So we're going to go with one. Maybe you could flip a coin, play rock, paper, scissors, or just say, okay, I'm going to start with you because you spoke first, and then I'm going to start with your sibling here. Please tell me what's happening. And as soon as you've listened to one point of view, you have to ask the other child what's their point of view. And then as a sort of a referee, you're going to say, okay, so I can hear 2 unhappy children here, and you're both fighting over the same thing. You both want the same thing. How can we rectify it? And what we really want to do is to ask the children to brainstorm and say, Child A, how do you think you could solve this? Child B, how do you think you could solve it? And very often they will say, well, I want what I want and I want what I want. And then that's where you step in as the referee and you say, okay, so it would be great if we could always get what we want, but how can we rectify this so that you both get a little bit of what you want? Do you have any ideas? And what about you? Do you have any ideas? So you're keeping up the referee and you're keeping up the brainstorming, because what we really want is for the children to come to the solution themselves. We want them to own the solution. We want them just with a little bit of sort of steering and guidance from us to be able to solve the issue themselves. Remember, we don't want to step in and resolve it. We really want it to belong to them. It's really hard. I understand that as an adult you may want to stop it, but keep in the back of your mind that this is a really helpful, useful development stage and learning for them to go through. So we want to step in that role of the referee. But what else I would also be focusing on is thinking, if there is a lot of rivalry and a lot of bickering, is there anything else underlying it? So very often what I would see is more rivalry with my children if one of them was taking up more of my time. So maybe they weren't very well, maybe they had difficulties and we were working with the school, or maybe they were going through a lot, if one of them was having a lot of music exams or dancing exams or a lot of clubs, and they were taking up a lot of my or my partner's time. So what you will tend to find then is the child who is having less of the time, and actually this can happen as well when you have a new baby, and obviously new babies take up a lot more of your time, not just when they're born, but for the first year, for the first 18 months. So it's really common then to find that the older child is really struggling, not necessarily as soon as the baby's born, but 6, 12, 18 months later. So think to yourself, is one child taking more of my time? Do I need to try and give the other child a little bit more of my time here? And by that I would be, can you make sure that you're around with them at bedtime? Can you spend some time playing one-to-one with that child? Is it possible for you to leave the house for a couple of hours each week with the other child who's not taking up the most of your time, so that they feel that they have your undivided attention every week for a couple of hours or two? And that can really help in the long run too. But I think it's how to cope with it in the moment, but also looking at what's causing it as well. Keeping it in the back of your mind, it's actually a good thing. They're learning great interpersonal relationship skills for the future. And don't swoop in to try to fix things. Try to be that referee. But above all, your kids are normal. They will outgrow it. And actually, for my own children are all older teenagers now, their relationships are lovely now. Weren't when they were younger. I think far too many of us think that our families and our children should all be happy, you know, like the Waltons and whatever, you know, all getting on and being best friends. And sometimes they just aren't. Sometimes they're better friends as they get older. Sometimes they're better friends as they approach adulthood. So don't worry if you've got young children who seem to bicker and fight a lot now. I'm pretty sure it won't be like that forever. I hope that helps. Thank you ever so much. If you have any more questions about sibling rivalry, they're covered in my Gentle Discipline book. Similarly, if you'd like any more parenting tips covering everything from babies all the way through to teenagers, do hit subscribe on my channel. I feature a new video every week. Many thanks. Bye.